Hi guys. I so apologize for not being here. I got a last minute appointment in Salt Lake, so I had to run up there. But I'm filming this video real quick this morning so that you can still be caught up and ready because your test is Friday. So put that on your calendar. Test Friday. You have all class today to practice and review, and I will stay after school on Thursday if you want to come by, and I'll be here before school. So before or after school on Thursday, come by. I can help you if you still have questions, but you got to be ready with all this stuff by Friday. So everyone should have a blue piece of paper. We're starting on this side that has like the big table. Go to the very top. It says, this equation represents the time x and the height y of a person jumping off Havasupai waterfall. So, sorry, but in class I showed you I went to this cool place called Havasupai, and there's a guy who jumps off the waterfall. And he does like 2 flips, and he falls for like 5-ish, 4-ish seconds. But that's not good enough, right? I want to know exactly how long he's in the air. So, you have this equation, y equals negative 4x squared minus 5x plus 98. And your job is to use this equation to figure out how long he was in the air. So, let me give you an image here. Here's the guy. He's standing at the top of the waterfall, and he's going to jump off the waterfall, right? And so if you want to know where he's going to, well, if you want to know how long it takes him to jump off the waterfall, that is how long he's in the air until he hits the water, right? And he hits the water at this point. So your job is to find what that x value is, which you can do with a graph, but I'm not going to give you like a computer to graph this on, so you have to solve it by hand. What you should know, what is this value, this like flat line right here where he's going to touch? That is where x equals 0. So what you can do is you can take your equation and you can set it equal to 0. We like it when things equal 0. So if something equals 0, then you could factor it. So I start and I'm like, all right, can I factor this? That's the easiest way to do things. So always check factoring first. So I go and I'm like, okay, multiplies to 98, adds to 5. Oh wait, I've got a big coefficient here. So you'd have to do like negative 4 times 98 and then do our whole Margot process, which we haven't reviewed in a second, and it's going to get a little messy. These numbers are too big, so I don't want to factor it. That's not a good idea. Could you take the square root? Could I just square root this and call it good? Figure it out? Well, you could square root that, but then you'd have to square root everything else, and that doesn't work because you also have an x here. So if you have an x squared and an x value, then the square rooting method isn't going to work. So that leaves us to completing the square. That's this poster that I have on the side of the room. You could complete the square. That's where you find the magic number. Yes, you remember this, which is negative b over 2a. So negative b would give you 5 divided by 2. A is negative 4. So you get 5 over negative 8, and then you'd have to square that. See how messy this is? It's going to be a fraction or a decimal, and then you're going to square that and add it to both sides. It's not going to work. You're not going to complete the square if you don't have a perfect number. So we're stuck. We use our last resort, and that's what I taught you last class. It's the quadratic equation. And it's really big and long, and it's sort of a pain, but it works every single time, no matter what. If you have an x squared and an x, you can always use the quadratic formula to find the answer. So, kind of long, kind of a pain, but useful. So I need you to get good at it, and I need you to practice it so you can do it on the test, because you'll use it for the rest of your math career. So, let's do it. You start off labeling, and I want to see this on your test. I want you to write A equals, B equals, and C equals. So A is always the number in front of the x squared term. So you find x squared, and then you go in front of it, and it's negative 4, and that's your A. B is the number in front of the x term. So you go to the x, and it's negative 5. And then C is the number that's by itself, and which is 98. Once you have those 3, then it's just plugging them into the equation. And I played you the video last time in class. I hope you have it memorized by now. But I'll write it up here just in case you don't. It's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus minus 4AC all over 2A. Yes? So I'm just going to take each of these values and plug them in for where they go, and then I'll show you how I evaluate this. So x equals negative, and then b is negative 5. So I do have two negatives in a row. It's fine. We'll simplify in a sec. Plus or minus the square root of b, which again is negative 5 squared. You need those parentheses. Please use the parentheses. If you don't write them, you'll get the answer wrong. B squared minus 4. A is negative 4, and C is 98. That whole thing is square rooted. And then all over 2A. A is negative 4. All right, so I've plugged all those things in. So from here now, I'm just going to simplify. And when you simplify, you want to start with the discriminant. I also taught this at the beginning of last class. The discriminant is just the little piece that's inside the square root. So before I do any math, I start with just this little piece. Don't type in the square root. Just type in the things that are inside of it and do that math first. So I'm going to grab my calculator, and I'm going to type this in exactly as it's written with a parenthesis. Negative 5, parenthesis squared, minus 4, parenthesis minus 4, parenthesis 98. So, I don't know if you can see this, but literally just straight in there, exactly as I have written, with all of my parentheses. And then I press enter. That was not enter. Okay, hang on, team. Minus 4, negative 4, 98. All right. And I get 1593. So this whole thing is 1593. Yes? So now watch how I'm going to simplify this. I start at the beginning. Negative, negative, negative times a negative, positive 5. Cool. Then I keep the plus or minus sign, and I keep the square root. But this time, instead of this whole huge thing, I just have 1593. 1593. All right, and then 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. So I've got negative 8 on the bottom. Cool. So this is pretty good. This is a great way. See if the square root checks out. So the square root of 1593 is a decimal. So on your test, if you get a decimal, don't worry about it. You can just leave it like this. Call it good. But on this one, I want to know how long he's in the air, this guy jumping off a cliff. And this is not a useful answer. If I'm like, hey, how long were you free falling? And he's like, oh, 5 plus or minus the square root of 1593 divided by negative 8. You're like, cool, no idea what that means. So you actually want a number for this problem. So I'm going to show you how to get an actual number. I typed it in. So do the square root. Actually take this square root. 1593, and let me clear this off and give us some more space here. And I'll show you how this is going to simplify. So it's 5 plus or minus the square root of 1593 divided by negative 8. All right, so I did the square root of 1593, and it's 39.91. Keep the 5, keep the plus or minus, keep the divided by 8, and I'm just going to change this to 39.91. Cool. So that's pretty good. We're almost done, but you still have a plus sign and a minus sign. So you have to evaluate both of those options. So I'm going to break it off, and I'm going to do the plus sign first. So I'm going to start, I'm going to do 5 plus 39.91. 5 plus 39.91 is 44.91. So I'm going to write 44.91 and then keep the negative 8 on the bottom. Now on this side I'm going to do the minus sign. So I'm going to do 5 minus 39.91. 5 minus 39.91, which is negative 34.91. And still divided by negative 8 on the bottom. So keep that there. Finally, just do the division. So 44.91 divided by negative 8 is negative 5.6. And then negative 34.91 divided by negative 8 is 4.36. Blessed. So now tell me, did he fall for negative 5.6 seconds? That doesn't make sense, right? You can't fall for negative time. So this is not an applicable answer. Though technically, if you extended the parabola, there is a negative answer. So it does exist, but not relevant for our issue. I just want to know how far he fell in normal, positive time, which is 4.36. So I'll show you the video when I get back. It's this cool guy diving off, and he free falls for 4.36 seconds. It's like a 125-foot cliff. So kind of cool, and a good review on how to use the quadratic equation. So make sure you really, really, really know that for Friday's test. Cheers. All right, I need to show you one more thing. I hope that this long video will upload to YouTube. So take this out. We just finished this top part right here. These are just like examples of how to do this stuff. So I'll talk you through these real quick. Graphing, you guys know you're only going to graph when I give you a graph. So super easy, you just find this point and this point where they cross. Factoring's the second easiest one. We love that one. Factor always. If you can factor, do it. It's really quick and easy. Solving for square roots is also easy, but it only works if you only have an x squared term. See this one? It has an x squared and an x, but this one has just an x squared. So that's why I can square root. If you have two of them, if you have an x squared and an x, you can't use square roots. Completing the square, I will ask you to do, but usually you aren't going to do it on your own. It's not a super useful method. Make sure you know how to do it, just in case. And finally, the quadratic formula. Obviously, I just showed you. This works all the time. So really, really make sure you have this one mastered. All right, flip it on the back. On the back, I have given you a 5-question practice quiz that I want you to take before you get your homework. And your homework is this bright yellow packet that I'll have the sub handout. But before you get your homework, I need you to go over this quiz. So pause me and don't move your seats. Just sit where you are and see if you can do these 5 problems. You can use the notes on the front if you want. Just go through and see if you can do this. Cool? Have at it. Wait, but then unpause me when you're finished before you get your homework so I can go over the answers with you. Because now I'm going to go over the answers. All right, so here we go. Clear this off again. Okay. Question 1, find the discriminant and determine how many solutions there are for the equation. I put up a poster, it's right above my desk, so use that poster, it will be up for the test. Discriminant's the easy one, it's just a little equation, b squared minus 4ac. Just a little piece of the quadratic equation. So use that in your first equation to find the discriminant. So b is 10, so 10 squared minus 4. A is negative 8, and C is 7. So that's it. You can just type that straight into your calculator, and I think you get 324. I think that's right. So that is called your discriminant, and that really doesn't tell you anything except for, check the poster, if you get a positive discriminant, that means you have 2 real solutions. So that's it. That's what I'm looking for on the test, is to find the number and then tell me if it means I have 2 real solutions or 1 real solution or no real solutions. So that's number 1. Number 2 says solve each equation by taking the square root. So this one says 9b squared equals 729. And it might be really tempting to just square root, just stab it right off. But you can't stab the squared away until you get the b squared by itself. This 9 is in the way. So you need to get rid of the 9 first. And the way you get rid of a 9, multiply by 9, is the opposite. The opposite of multiplying is dividing. So divide both sides by 9 first. Yes? All right, now you have b squared equals 729 divided by 9 is 81. So much nicer. Now that you have b squared all by itself, now you can get rid of the squared. And you get rid of the squared by stabbing it or square rooting it. So now you're left with b equals the square root of 81. What times what is 81? 9. 9 times 9 is 81, and negative 9. Negative 9 times negative 9 is also 81. Those are your two answers for number 2. Number 3 is another square root problem, but this one, the square is on the outside. So you have no choice, but you have to get rid of the squared first before you can get to the x. So you have to stab it first. This one and this one. All right, so then you're left with an x plus 3. And the square root of 25 is 5. The square root of 25 is also negative 5. So this is where you get another equation, x plus 3 again, but this time equals negative 5. You have to set up 2 equations for this because you always get a positive and a negative. Now solve for x. Get x by itself. So you'll minus 3 from both sides. So you're left with just x equals 5 minus 3, which is 2. And negative 5 minus 3, which is negative 8. That's how you get those 2 answers for 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Onward. Number 4. Number 4 is solve this equation by factoring, and it says v squared plus 21 equals negative 10v. We like solving by factoring. This is easy. But you can't solve it by factoring until it equals 0. So let's get this side to be equal 0. So let's move this piece over. So if you want to move a negative 10v to the other side, you're going to do positive 10v. Positive 10v. So I'm going to put these in order. So I'm going to write the v squared first, and then the 10v, and then the 21, and now it equals 0. Now that it equals 0, we are good to go. We just need to factor it. So factoring is where you tell me what multiplies to this end number and what adds to this number in the middle. So multiplies to 21 and adds to 10, positive 7 and positive 3. So positive 7 and positive 3, and it still equals 0. Now just solve this. What plus 7 is going to make this 0? Well, negative 7. And then again, what plus 3 makes this 0? Negative 3. So you got to go all the way. So your answer is negative 7 and negative 3 for that one. Cool. All right, last one. It's a quadratic equation. I already did this one at the beginning of class, but I'll do one more. 4k squared plus 2k minus 2 equals 0. Do it. I don't care how annoying it is. Extra credit. I want to see that a equals b equals c equals on the side of your paper. A is 4, the number in front of k squared. B is in front of k, it's 2, and c is by itself, negative 2. All right, let's plug it in. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. There it is. Hopefully you remember where you start. So once you have this all written down, you start on the inside of the square root with this little discriminant piece. So I type in 2 squared minus 4 times negative 2 into my calculator. 4 plus 32, and you get 36. So I'm going to keep the negative 2, keep the plus or minus, and this whole thing was the square root of 36. 2 times 4 is 8. Easy. This is actually a really good number because the square root of 36 has an answer. The square root of 36 is 6. So I'm going to rewrite this as negative 2 plus or minus 6 over 8. Awesome. Then from there I just got to do the plus and the minus. So with the plus sign, negative 2 plus 6 is 4, still over 8. And then with the minus sign, negative 2 minus 6 is negative 8 over 8. So let's finish those. 4 divided by 8 is 1/2, or 0.5. So I'm just going to say 0.5 is my first answer. Negative 8 divided by 8 is negative 1. So my second answer is negative 1. I don't know if you can like put this in slow motion or just re-watch it if you're confused, or come see me after school. You can send me an email if you need help. I'll put my email up here. It's Lindsay, LINDSAYG @provo.edu. You can send me an email if you're still struggling. But that's the gist of it. This whole test is just solving for x. You're just trying to tell me the answer. So this whole entire blue paper should be done, and now you get your homework. Your homework is the yellow packet. So it's 3 pages, and it has everything that's going to be on the test, per usual. So use your time wisely. Make sure you study. When I come back, your test is Friday no matter what. So you have to have that yellow packet done. You've got to be studying. You got to do it on your own. At the beginning of class Friday, I'll go over the answers really quick and answer like little questions if you have them, but then the entire class is going to be taking the test, so you got to be ready to go. Also, make sure you show up Friday, because you know I'll answer questions, and you got to be there for answering questions. But that's it. That'll conclude this unit. So good luck. Ask each other questions. Work together. Stay quiet. Stay on task. Put your dang phones away. And I will be back Friday. Okay, good luck. Peace and love.